$30 million walked out of a California bank in 1972, and nobody's ever found a single bill. I've spent decades chasing stories that don't add up. This one's different. On April 7, 1972, the United California Bank in Laguna Niguel became the site of what would become one of the largest cash heists in American history. But here's what makes it strange. The man at the center of it all, a Cleveland mobster named Herb Belcher, walked away with $30 million in untraceable currency, and for 50 years, almost none of it surfaced. Not in Miami, not in Vegas, not anywhere. The morning started like any other. Tellers arrived, counted their drawers, opened the doors to customers who needed to move money in and out of their accounts. Nobody inside that bank, not the manager, not the security team, not a soul, knew they were about to witness something that would puzzle federal agents for decades. The pieces were already in motion. They'd been moving for weeks. Herb Belcher wasn't born in California. He came from Cleveland, a city where the mob had roots deeper than most people realized. By the early 1970s, he'd built a reputation as a man who could move money, organize logistics, and keep his mouth shut. That last part mattered most. In organized crime, silence is currency, and Belcher had plenty of both. The plan itself was deceptively simple, which is often the hallmark of the best heists. Belcher and his associates identified a vulnerability in how the United California Bank handled its cash transfers. The bank received regular deliveries of currency from armored truck services, but there was a window. A brief, exploitable window where large amounts of cash sat in the vault before being processed or distributed. What Belcher didn't know, and here's where the story becomes truly fascinating, was that federal investigators were already watching him. They had no idea about the bank job yet, but they were tracking his movements, his associates, his financial patterns. The gap between what Belcher believed was hidden and what was actually being documented would eventually become the thread that nearly unraveled everything. On the morning of April 7th, the operation began. Men entered the bank, some posing as maintenance workers, others as armored car personnel. The disguises were meticulous, the timing was precise. Inside the vault, they moved with the efficiency of people who'd rehearsed this moment 100 times in their minds. $30 million doesn't move quickly, but it moves. The escape happened in broad daylight. That's the part that still astonishes me. Not at night, not in darkness, but during regular business hours. They loaded the money into vehicles and drove away. Minutes later, bank employees realized what had occurred. The alarm was raised. But by then, Herb Belcher and his crew were already moving through California streets toward a destination nobody would discover for years. The FBI arrived within hours, so did the Secret Service, so did local police. They found the vault empty, a physical impossibility suddenly made real. $30 million doesn't vanish. It gets spent, hidden, laundered, or recovered. But Belcher's money seemed to do something different. It disappeared into a void. Investigators traced Belcher to Miami, then to Las Vegas. Then the trail went cold, not because he was careful, though he was, but because he'd planned for something investigators rarely anticipate. He didn't spend the money conventionally. He didn't deposit it. He didn't buy property or cars or jewelry. He kept it moving in cash through networks so compartmentalized that no single person knew where it all went. I've read the investigative reports myself. The frustration in them is palpable. Agents wrote about following leads that evaporated, about informants who claimed Belcher had connections to international crime syndicates, about rumors that some of the money went to fund operations in South America. But rumors aren't evidence, and evidence in this case was nearly impossible to find. The second gap in what people knew came months later. Belcher was arrested not for the bank heist, but for an unrelated federal crime. Prosecutors hoped he'd crack. They offered deals. They threatened charges, but Belcher remained silent. He served his time, and when he was released, he disappeared again. The money remained hidden. The case remained open. Over the decades, small amounts of the stolen currency surfaced. A few thousand here, a few thousand there. Never enough to explain the total, never enough to establish a clear pattern. It was as if Belcher had engineered a system where the money could be accessed in fragments by different people in different places without anyone ever knowing the full picture. The FBI never officially closed the case. In fact, I've learned that investigators still receive tips. People claim they saw Belcher in foreign countries. Others swear they know where the money is buried, but nothing has ever been substantiated. Nothing has ever led to a recovery. It's as if the heist created a kind of criminal vacuum that time itself has been unable to fill. What makes this heist truly remarkable isn't the amount stolen, though $30 million was staggering in 1972 dollars. It's the absolute discipline of the operation afterward. Most criminals fail because they can't help themselves. They spend too much, they talk too much, they get caught. Belcher did none of those things. He built a structure that outlasted his own relevance. Herb Belcher died in 1994. To my knowledge, he never revealed where the bulk of the money went. No deathbed confession, no journal, no map, just silence. And with him went the answer to one of America's most perplexing criminal mysteries. Somewhere in vaults or buried properties or offshore accounts we'll never find, approximately $30 million sits waiting, still untraceable, still unclaimed. The United California Bank rebuilt. The insurance companies paid out. The case files grew dusty. But for anyone who studies how crime actually works, not how Hollywood portrays it, but how it actually functions, the Belcher heist remains a masterclass in operational security. It's a reminder that the greatest thefts aren't always solved. Sometimes they're just forgotten. What we know about the heist comes from fragments, interviews, leaked reports, investigator memoirs. What we don't know is far more interesting. Where did the money go? Who else was involved? And most importantly, is any of it still accessible today? Those questions remain unanswered, and they may stay that way forever. Subscribe. Each week we uncover a heist that changed how criminals think about planning and how investigators think about pursuit.